Hi, welcome to the podcast, Katie. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. I'm super excited to chat with you face to face, like we were just talking about before we hit record. This is the first time that we've actually chatted live and interacted, and we've shared emails and stuff like that. So it's fun, always fun to connect on just a different level.
Yeah, just to be able to actually interact and not just be that small circle on Facebook that you see all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, absolutely. And I never know what color your hair is going to be when I talk to you. So it's like, oh,
That's
cool.
right now my son's is the same color, so I have to change mine because I keep making the same joke. I'm like, it's genetic. That's why we have it. So, my dad joke has got to change.
I love it. That's awesome. All right. Well, before we jump in, so tell us a little bit more about your superpowers and what it is that you do right now.
Oh, I love that question. So, what I do in terms of therapists is I help therapists market and fill groups in private practice. And how I got to that point is because I launched my private practice with a group and then just kept going until I personally had 7 groups that I was running and continued to get referrals. So, I was like, I need to hire people and grow this thing and scale. So now I have 10 employees that work for me and we all run groups. I was telling you before we went live that I purchased a building that's twice the size of where we were, and every room is a group room. So we're constantly calling in our community in groups to support them. So I guess if I had to, zero in on my superpower, it's collecting groups of people and filling groups quickly.
That's awesome. So every, I'm sorry, I just try to wrap my head around it because it's such a different model than I'm used to like speaking to other people about. So every room is a group room. So that does that mean that all of your clinicians, the therapists that you work with, are solely focused on groups, or do they do individual work as well?
It's a hybrid model. So yeah, every room, aside from the intern little tiny office, but all of our main rooms are a group room. And so most of my therapists, in addition to having a caseload of individual clients, they run a group. So we have DBT groups, we have talk process groups, we have art groups, we have an LGBTQ teen group, we have a parenting group. So like each of them
Wow.
has a specialty. And one of the ways that I initially fill their caseload is I ask them to run a group or a workshop because it's a way of elevating or amplifying their presence in the community quickly.
Yeah, I love that. So tell me more a little bit about, before we jump into our topic here, a little bit
Yeah.
more about how you started. You said you launched a private practice with your group. Take me back a little bit to your story there.
Yeah, so when I started in the field, I was working in a partial hospital program. So I worked with kids and teens in a partial hospital program, and my job was to do individual and family therapy and then refer them out to outpatient resources once they completed the program. And so, the focus is on groups in partial. And so all of the adolescents would say, is there anything like this out there? Like, I loved the group part of being here. Can I continue that when I leave here?
Yeah.
And at the time I was working there, there was like one DBT group in the area, but there was really nothing in terms of just general teen support, process talk to group teens together. And so I always knew that I was going to be in private practice someday. I'm not great at having a boss or a dress code or anything like that. And so I had the idea. It was like my market research, right?
Yeah.
Everyone kept saying, here's what I want, but it doesn't exist. So me, I'm like, okay, gap in the market. Here's how I
Yeah.
get myself out into private practice. And so I rented a space, at the time subletted like by the day, and I marketed this group and it filled quickly 16s, which led to another 16s and another group, and then just kind of springboarded from there into what it is today.
Yeah. Awesome. So cool. I love that. I love how you were just aware of like, okay, there's a gap here and a need that needs to be filled, and that's just like, oh, that's just a perfect way to step into it. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so let's get into a little bit more about groups and marketing, specifically about marketing for groups. And I know that you have a very clear process on how you do this, and so you're going to take us through a little bit of that for anybody out there who's thinking about how can they add groups to their private practice. So I'm going to kind of let you lead with that, and I'll ask some
Cool.
follow-up questions along the way, and we'll dig deep into this.
All right, I'm ready. We're diving in.
All right. Yep. We're diving in. Bring it.
Okay, so the first thing that I would recommend when you're starting to think about running a group is being really clear on who your group is for and what it's about. And going back to me seeing that there was a gap in what our community needed and solving a problem and providing a service that was wanted and being asked about, it's kind of like being able to tune into or tap into what is needed in your community. Where are those
Yeah.
gaps? And in addition to that, I always recommend as much specificity as possible, knowing what kinds of problems you're solving, what point a person is at when they're seeking out a group. Like I often will say when I'm teaching, what is the phrase that your ideal client is typing into Google to try and find your group? We really want
Yeah.
to niche it down that specifically. And so that idea compared to like, I want to run a mindfulness group. Well, great, that's a topic and a concept, but who is it for? Why would they join? What are they getting out of it? What are these specifics that are really going to draw someone in and make them want to join your group?
Yeah. Is there like a way that you encourage people to do some of that research? Like, is it just keeping a journal and kind of like thinking about it for a while and just paying attention, some of that stuff?
So it's a little bit of both. As with all my answers, number one is I encourage you to pay attention to what are the commonalities that you see continuing to show up with your individual caseload. If you have 5 clients that are all saying, I compare myself to my peers and I don't feel good enough and I tend to shy away from, work events because of this, you might have the idea, oh, some kind of group that helps, professional adults overcome anxiety and better engage in work environments. I don't know, making this up as
Yeah.
I go. So that would be, really listening to your client base, the people that are already in the building that you can pull from.
Yeah.
The other side of that is like just thinking about something for a long time isn't really going to get you anywhere. And so not being afraid to put something out there just to see how it goes. I often recommend if you have an email list, sending out an email like, hey, I'm thinking about running this group. Would you be interested? If you don't have an email list, maybe putting it on social media, putting it out to your current clients, putting it out to your professional contacts to just try and gauge interest in it. But
Yeah.
you'll never know unless you put the idea out there.
Right. Yeah, and it's kind of there's almost like a process for making sure that it's tested and like because if you don't put it out there then and you just start working on something then you could end up wasting a lot of time I would think if it then falls flat, which would suck.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I never want to like create a curriculum or, dump a bunch of money into marketing something until I'm sure that it's a viable idea. And we
Yeah.
get to that point by talking to people and understanding their feedback.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of feedback to guide everything that I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you land on your topic and you kind of are gauging that feedback and you're talking to people, what can you do next to kind of take this the next step further?
Then it's all about visibility and again, making connections. So I like to start with what is that term like low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
So starting with your current clients and letting them know what's available. I have this group coming up. It would really help you. My whole life. So, helping people see that something is a good fit for them is kind of like a sales process in itself, but it doesn't have to be icky and sleazy. It's all about
Yeah.
here's this thing that's going to help you meet your goals. And as long as it does, let's say your goal is to manage your depression or, stop yelling at your partner, whatever it is, if the group supports those goals, letting your client know group is a way that you're going to be able to meet your goals more quickly and with more support and accountability. Is this something you'd be interested in? So
Yeah.
bringing the idea to them, that's where I would start. And typically, we're a bigger group practice at this point, but even when we were smaller, we could fill at least 2-3 spaces just in our office with all of these clients that we support. When it was just me, sometimes it was with my individual caseload as opposed to, all of the clients.
Right. Yeah.
And then from there, going bigger, reaching out to professionals, letting them know what you have available. I'm a huge fan of Facebook ads. So I use Facebook ads pretty consistently to fill my groups because it's a way to put your message out there directly to your community as opposed to third party telling doctors and other professionals and like hoping that they're going to tell their clients.
Yeah.
And we all know not all therapists are great at selling even their own services, let alone somebody else's services. So I always want to be directly connecting.
Yeah. So just a follow up on Facebook ads, which is something I know a little bit about, but haven't used anything for something like this. So what are some things that people need to know about without going off on a whole other podcast episode here on Facebook ads? But what are some things that we need to know about if we are wanting to amplify, the message of our group within our community?
Yes. So 3-step process. I'll keep it simple and tech
All
free
right. I
just for
love all
this
the processes.
yeah, I mean, it's important to think about the job of each part of the process. So when we think about the Facebook ad, the goal of the Facebook ad is to put the message in front of people and get them to click to your website. The goal of the Facebook ad is not to sell them on your group or get them to sign up. So you're thinking about what kind of ad can I run to entice their interest and get them to click to my website for more information. Then when they get to your website, you want to make sure that you have a page that's dedicated to your group. I use the metaphor of like, if you wanted to buy the scarf I was wearing and not wearing right now, I wouldn't say like, go to the mall. I would say, go to this store. It's in this department. So we don't want to send people to the homepage of our website if we're trying to get them to a specific service. We want to send them specifically to that service page.
Yeah.
And then the goal of that landing page is to get them to complete a form or reach out to you for more information. So the job of the page is to sell them on connecting with you. I guess I lied, it's 4 steps. And then the job of the phone call is to actually enroll them in the group. So there's all these steps in the process. And oftentimes therapists are like, okay, I got interest, but it never converted. That's because they did a good job of, putting the idea out there on the front end, but there's still steps that they need to take.
Right. Yeah. It's the follow up and getting really connecting with that potential person who's going to join the group.
Exactly. And I've also found that it often takes 3 or 4 follow-ups to get someone enrolled in a group. I have an intake coordinator who's amazing. And so we have a process where every 2 days we're following up by phone or email. And by the 3rd time, if they're non-responsive, we cross them off the spreadsheet. But, the idea that we're instantly going to connect without a game of phone tag or a few back and forths is unrealistic. So we kind of have to get over ourselves and our fear of, are we bothering them by following up a few times?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I would think that a lot of people who are just starting out in this and they're kind of expecting people to just sign up on the form and then like hear from them right away and be super excited to join the group, as great as your group might be, and it's going to benefit them, but knowing that people do need those touch points. And I would think too, and correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody goes to your website and fills out that form, and then you've got their email address, maybe they don't join the group this time, but, would somebody maybe follow up in a few months when you run the group again?
Yeah, we do that, especially for our parent groups, because they're an 8-week group as opposed to an open enrollment ongoing group like our teen groups are. If a parent can't join for any reason, whether it's, time commitment or time of year, we'll ask, can we keep you on the list and reach out the next time we run it? And sometimes we will. I'd say like 20% of people do follow up and actually sign on the next time we run it.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool. All right. So you've got your Facebook ads going. You're starting to let people know about it. It sounds like that next step is making sure that you've got that page in place.
Yes.
Is there certain information that you include on that page to help it, encourage people to sign up or, just fill it out for more information?
So I generally go by the rule of who, what, how. Like, who is it for? How do we paint the picture of who it's for? What are they experiencing when they come to find you? What are the benefits? Like, what are the outcomes of group? What can they expect as a result of being in group? And then how do they contact you or get to the next step in the process? What I find is that a lot of times, and I'm sure you see this doing websites and stuff, therapists tend to focus on the process because we train so hard in our process. Yeah. Like, I'm a DBT therapist and I love DBT, but like that's not the language that my parents of my clients are using when they're, up at night worried about their teen self-harming. They're not thinking DBT. They're thinking, how do I get my teen to stop doing this? So we want to make sure we're really clearly articulating why they're there, what they're experiencing, what the benefits and outcomes are, and maybe a touch on the process, but not having that be the most important piece or the highlighted piece of what we're talking about. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. And are there other ways that you can amplify this, like on your own website? So you got like the page set up, and I'm thinking like, would you maybe have like pop up on your website trying to drive as much traffic as possible to it? Is that something you do too?
I've done that sporadically. I don't have my own metrics on how successful that's been for me, and I like to have those kinds of things to strongly recommend something. Yeah. But I've played around with, I use I like a banner at the top of my website that'll scroll across. I've had a pop-up. When we do our summer camp, I have a pop-up. I'd have to look at whether it worked or not. But I think anything, if that's primarily what you're trying to draw your attention to, anything that can draw attention to that space is really helpful.
Yeah. Well, that's a
And I
good.
don't do well sitting idly, like just waiting for ads to work or waiting for pop-ups to work. So I'm also doing like consistent lives, live streams on my page, and at least daily posts. And if I'm not seeing results, I'm emailing school counselors. And so I like to, I don't rest until the spaces are filled.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a good point. Don't just sit there. And also know what works, I would think, like really tracking stuff. Like you said, like you don't have the metrics, so you can't really recommend it. But,
Right.
if somebody thinks like, oh, I'm going to put a pop-up on here, kind of understand like how many people are clicking that pop-up, how many people saw it. And that lets you know if you need to focus on it more or just drop it and focus on the things that are really converting, I would think.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of testing. Sometimes I'll just take a little bit of a budget and I'll test new things to see how they work. And then if they work, then I teach therapists. If they don't work, then I just toss them to
Just
the
drop it.
side. But it's cool to try and understand like what are the things that work consistently so that other people can take advantage of those processes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, what's next for filling up your groups and really marketing them well?
So as you are having ads running, as you are, talking to individual clients, the other thing that I do is I do make a flyer, but only really to send out digitally to other professionals who I know see the same kinds of clients. And so we do have a few referral sources. I'd say we have one good doctor's office, two good schools, and a handful of therapists who really, we collaborate well with them. And so I think, though, if you're going that route, it's important to build a relationship before you just send out flyers, right? So
Yeah.
it's these relationships that we've built over time in the community by cross-referring to each other, by, supporting each other with clinical consults from time to time, sharing each other's stuff on social media. So I think it's building community relationships both with other professionals, and also we do free workshops at schools and parent organizations because
Yeah.
we want to get our name out there, and then we'll often pitch our groups at the ends of these workshops as a way to get in new clients.
Yeah. So a lot of networking and really just drawing on your network that you hopefully already have built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not great at coffee dates. I'm an introvert, which people don't believe. Online, I'm not an introvert.
Yeah, I'd say I'm surprised by that. I am an
Yeah.
introvert to the
No,
nth
so
degree.
I tend to do a lot of my networking online, and a lot of just like I had just shared today in my group that I send emails that are just like, hey, thanks for what you do. Glad to have a great therapist like you in our community, and not asking for anything in return, because I think even asking a therapist who's super busy for time is like, I don't know, for me, I'm a mom, I'm two business owners,
Yeah.
so it's hard to give my time unless it's something that's really important to me. I don't see my best friends all the time. How am I going to make time for these other things that, may or may not be in my benefit?
Yeah. Yeah. And are also possibly tiring for you as an introvert, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Do you ever reach out to like friends and family as well, like letting them know what you do and you've got new groups starting?
Not necessarily. So I guess no is the short answer to that.
Yeah.
I have all of my therapists share what we're marketing on their pages and on their social media because it helps with the algorithm. The more something is shared, the more something is liked, the more
Yeah.
people are seeing it. I don't necessarily share with my friends and family, one, because I live in a different area than all of them, so it's not really beneficial. And two, I don't know. I don't know how effective that would be. I will say,
Yeah.
though, my father-in-law is a musician. And when I redid my website, I sent it to him and was like all proud. And then he shared it on his page and I got a client from that. But he has like a huge following from being
Oh,
prominent
cool.
in what he does. So
Oh, that's
that
cool.
was pretty cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you never know where someone might come from.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But it definitely, I mean, everyone who knows me knows what I do. I love being a therapist. And I think that, yeah, I see a lot of people kind of like hide the fact that they're a therapist because of privacy reasons. And I totally get that.
Yeah.
And I see the importance of branding myself as my businesses as well in any online space or any space that I'm in. So I see the benefit in sharing about those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Well, what else? So you got the flyer going. Are there other things we can do to really amplify this?
All right, so let me run down my list. So we're clear on the idea. We have the web page. We're doing ads, and concurrently we're doing posts and live videos and really consistently, taking daily action to show up in an online space, connecting with primary care doctors. Did I say that one?
Yes.
as well as if you're working with kids or teens, school counselors, any parents. If you have an email list, you're sending out emails, and which, oftentimes will fill a couple spots just by sending out an email. Following up with individual clients, checking in with other professionals. I think that covers the whole list. Is there anyone I missed in terms of being able to connect and share about what an offer might be? Now I'm interviewing you. What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, that sounds like that's a funnel right there.
Yeah.
One question that comes to mind is, how long should someone take to do this, like leading up to a group?
So if it is your first group, I'd recommend giving yourself at least 6 weeks. I think previously I have said even 8 weeks, because you really want to clarify, do your market research. So if you've never run a group before, give yourself enough time to do the market research and get really clear on what it is you're offering, and make sure it's viable by getting the feedback that other people are interested before you put any money or effort into really advertising it. Yeah. Now I can fill a group in a week or two, but I know my population well. I know exactly what they respond to. I have enough of a foundation within our group practice to pull from, and so it works really well. And that's once you dial in on all of these pieces, it can be that easy, but you need to tap into all the things that work as a part of the whole funnel. Yeah. So I would say in general, giving yourself like a 4-week period if you're doing this consistently, just so that you can get all the pieces together.
Right. And when you do a group and you're kind of in that sort of post phase, like you've done it, you're kind of assessing the success of your marketing. What are some of the main metrics that you're looking at to make sure that you are on track to grow and continue to do these groups?
So one of the things that I do with all of our groups or with all of our referrals is on each of our forms, it says, where did you find us? And we keep a spreadsheet. Again, my amazing intake person keeps a spreadsheet of all of these things. So we tend to be, 1/3 split pretty evenly with Google, Facebook ads, and professional referrals in our community. So, which doesn't give us any real clear idea of which one is the most. They're all pretty even. So we tend to spend time and money in those 3 areas. And that's, on the front end, what I would recommend is any marketing you're doing, ask them on the phone or have something in your form that says, how did you find me? So you know where to spend more of your time and money. The other thing that I do, especially with our parent groups, not necessarily with adolescents, is we send out feedback forms after group that are anonymous and say, almost like if you've ever taken a CE course and it asks you like what went well, what didn't, and gives you like a free space to respond. Yeah. We're asking like, what went well, what they liked, what was not helpful, what they'd like to see more of. So we're always, I can't think of the right word, but we're always improving. There's a word. We're always improving our programs and our processes based on the feedback. I do it more informally in my teen groups. At the end of group, I'll be like, how was this for you? What's missing? What do you want to work on next week? I think feedback is really helpful in every part of the process.
Yeah. And tell me, because I'm not a therapist myself, so are you able to do testimonials for groups, or are they not are they totally confidential?
So in my state of Pennsylvania, so I don't know if it's similar for every state, but it is unethical. It's against the code of ethics for licensed professional counselors, which is the only thing I can speak to use testimonials. And so we don't. The one thing we use them for is we do a summer camp every summer. But it's strictly skills and activities, and there's there's nothing clinical happening. Yeah, right. And so that feels different. We've also done it for some of our parenting skills groups because, again, there's no clinical diagnosis. Yeah. So it's really more of an educational thing. But for any kind of group where we're giving a diagnosis, it's like the power differential is asking them for something makes them feel like they have to, and that's not fair in the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's what I thought.
I've seen therapists do it, but I can't speak to why or how they can do it. I just know I can't.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, is there anything else that you want to give as far as advice for marketing a group? I'm kind of thinking more towards the new person starting out, who has never done this before.
The new person starting out who has never run a group before, number one, take action. Don't keep thinking about it before you actually put some idea out there into the world. Because the way that I think about it, if I don't share this message, somebody who's been lonely and struggling is never going to know what it is that I'm offering, and they may never receive the kind of support that the group can provide.
Yeah.
When I first started running groups, that was something parents would say, thank you for running this. We've been looking forever and not been able to find it. And so that to me really solidified this idea that we have to be more vocal about our services so that our clients can find us. So if you're just starting out, like don't have any clients yet, or just starting out, like want to run a group but are in private practice?
I'm thinking like in private practice, but they're wanting to go into groups a little bit more.
Okay. If you're in private practice and you're seeing a few clients, start to listen for commonalities between those clients. Keep a journal, like you said, Daniel, like keep a journal of the kinds of things, the presented concerns people are calling you for. Just write them all down and start to highlight areas that things kind of chunk together. And then start to float the idea out there, even if it's like, hey, I'm thinking about offering this. Are you interested? And see if they say yes or no. Also keep track of why they say no, because you can use that information to overcome objections in your marketing.
Ooh,
if everyone says no because they're nervous about being around other people, you can totally do, blogs and lives and other content related things about why being around other people is helpful for you and how to overcome it and get to that point.
I love that. That's some good marketing strategy right there. Thank you for that.
So marketing is just about being a good listener. I think that we forget that as therapists, like we get scared of marketing, not me, but the collective we. And a lot of it is just about being a good listener and feeding back people what they want and need and not being afraid to be vulnerable in the process. Like I sent 4 emails to school counselors this morning, and I still have that human part of me that's like, I don't want to bother them. I know it's a busy day, but I just said, get over yourself and just do it and put it out there. And I got an email back already that was like, thank you. This looks like a great service. We're excited to share this with our students. And so it's just about listening, sharing, and getting over your own fear of being visible, because if you don't, your clients won't find you.
Yeah. And I think that too, like for me, it's like going back to the why. Like, why are you in private practice? Why are you, it seems like you're wanting to help people, and you can't help people if they don't know that you're there and you exist and get your stuff out into the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been super just strategic, and I love the process. Just a clear roadmap for people to follow. Where can people find out more about you?
So if you are a therapist and you're looking to market or fill groups in private practice, the best place to find me is my website. It's becomeagroupguru.com. There you can find free resources, webinars, blogs, and also the link to my free community where I do almost daily lives or posts about marketing, filling, running groups, and my Steal Your Group series, which is all of the activities I do in my groups, and I give you all of the resources you need to run them for yourself.
Awesome. And you also had a free download for my audience as well, didn't you?
Yes. So I gave you the groups or courses download, which is essentially the benefits of running a group versus the benefits of doing an online course. Both have a lot of similarities in terms of packaging your expertise to a group of people. And so it just helps you kind of clarify what your next step in the process is if you're ready to go beyond one-to-one.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And if anyone's listening and you want to get that, you can just download that on the show notes. And one last thing before I forget, I actually forgot this morning when I spoke to Jane Carter for the podcast. I always like to ask, what's one book you've read recently that has impacted you?
Oh, can I just give my favorite overall book?
Yeah, that's
I've read recently is
sure.
Clinical. So
Sure.
Leveraging the Universe, Mike Dooley. It is a book about really tapping into your own powers of thought and manifesting. It's a little woo-woo, but I really love it. It makes the process concrete in terms of being able to overcome your own mindset blocks. I read it, and then I went to Disneyland and Universal with my family, and they upgraded our tickets to first class, and then this the interaction thing happened, and we got passes to the front of every line, and it was just like this wild ride of unblocking these things, and then my life unfolded in a beautiful way. So I always say it's life-changing, and I tell people to go read it.
Wow. I'll have to check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and it was great to connect.
Thank you. It was great to connect with you too.